Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation. I'm Jeff, and today on episode 133, we're taking a look at every indie game hitting the Nintendo Switch through the week ending January 23rd. You can find Nindie Nation on Twitter, come hang out with us on Discord, or check out the week's new releases with us right here on YouTube every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern during our Nindies at Night stream. Last week, we started with a ridiculous amount of games that popped up out of nowhere, and frankly, this week it's a lot of the same. However, we've at least got a few more diamonds in the rough, and there's a lot to like about the new releases. So let's jump right into episode 133 of Nindie Nation by taking a look at the 10 Neglected Nindies that released since episode 132. If you joined us for Nindies at Night last week, you got a taste of what to expect in East Asia Soft's latest release, the action exploration platformer Demoniaca Everlasting Night, which dropped for $11.99. A Kickstarter project released in 2019, this Aki-developed Metroidvania is really pretty cool. There is a lot of gross-out stuff in it, and I think the developer is a bit too horny for his own good, but the world is interesting, and the combat actually plays more like a fighting game than anything else. Go check out the video if you want to see more, but I think Demoniaca is a great title to throw on your wishlist, and wait until it's closer to $7 or so. To be or not to be? That is the question asked by 10 Man Games, who released this point-and-click adventure based on Hamlet for $6.99. The game is very janky and not the prettiest thing to look at, but it does look hilarious. If you happen to grow up on the internet with sites like Penny Arcade and The Oatmeal, they both contributed to the game, as did a lot of their contemporaries, so the humor does make sense. Shakespeare and memes. The Masters of Picross are back, and Jupiter released Picross S7 for $9.99. These games are fantastic, and everyone should at least give Picross a try once, so if you're in the mood for some chill puzzle solving, go pick up the demo and see what you think. Nindie newcomers Dispatch Games and RS34 release a very low-budget looking shoot-'em-up with, Rattergy swag for $20. It's got a confusing mission and objective structure and seems to be loaded with Japanese pop culture references. And while I kinda want to give it a try, cause it does look like it has some merit, $20 is just way too much. And it's been a while since Qbyte released a cheap and chill puzzle game, but they're back this week with Unlock the Cat for $2.99. As far as I can tell, Mini Cactus Games took one of those sliding block puzzle games, put some decent artwork in it, and added cats. Sold. Uh-oh, we've got another point-and-click adventure game that looks like it's from Artifex Mundi, but nope. Lost Lands Redemption released for $6.99 from
5BN Studio.
If you're wondering, I've recently learned that the BN in
5BN Studios
actually stands for Bad Nindie. It's crazy, huh? There's a demo, though, if you don't believe me. Whisper Games released a hand-drawn visual novel with puzzles and minigames called The Shadow of You for $6.49. It's a mature-rated spooky game, and pretty much everything I just said about The Shadow of You are all things that I actively avoid in video games, so probably take my impressions with a grain of salt. And speaking of bad studios that assume caps lock is cruise control for awesome,
Cruise
released Space Stella: The Unknown Planet for $14.99. It's a lazily ported cover-based shooter that runs like crap in the trailer, so I have to assume that this title by Hit Game Studio is not likely to change anyone's opinion of
Cruise.
The description for Studio GW and Mediascape's Vaziel Saga XX says it is a
Sengoku simulation game that guides stupid people.
But I don't know, guys. Releasing a text-driven game that includes zero translation, so everything is still in Japanese, and charging $34 for it? Seems like your studio is the one who needs someone to guide stupid people. Just saying. And finally, Dispatch Games and Sonic Powered release Japanese rail sim Journey to Kyoto. Want to take a guess what that game is all about? I can tell you this much, at $50, it's not about charting on the eShop. But thankfully, the new releases, while still having a smattering of garbage, managed to offer up some exciting new games this coming week. So head down to the comments, let me know if any of these neglected Nindies tickle your fancy, and let's dive right in to the biggest week the eShop has seen in months, with the 26 new releases hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, January 23rd. The first release for the week is a big one. Well, I guess that depends on who you are, though. In 1999, Acclaim released Shadow Man, one of the very few mature games for the N64, and it was one of the most impressive games on the system in just about every regard. On Monday the 17th, Nite Studio, who have also recently delivered Shantae and the incredible ports of Doom and Quake, give the same treatment to Shadow Man Remastered, releasing for $19.99. Following the premise of the comic series that I've never heard of until researching this episode, Shadow Man, well, it's a lot to take in. Let's just say it's a guy who can travel between parallel worlds and he's on a revenge mission. But he's also kinda controlled by the devil. Like I said, it's a lot, but it's actually a really good story. Gameplay-wise, it's somewhere between a 3D Zelda and the original Tomb Raider titles. Big open areas, like I said, two parallel worlds, lots of platforming, puzzles, and satisfying third-person action, mixing melee and shooting. As usual, Night Dive has given the game a slew of new options, even letting you play with the original graphics or updated HD textures, smoothing out the frame rate, a bunch of quality of life improvements, really the works. If you can't tell, I am very excited for this game, and I definitely recommend it, but just remember that it is an N64 game, so, beloved or not, you'll need to go into it with the right expectation. If you do, be prepared for a great story, fun gameplay, and a cool glimpse into what something like Majora's Mask could be if it was even darker. Colossus Game Studio and Isaias Game Dev also have a game releasing on the 17th, with their pixel art platformer Dobo's Heroes dropping for $1.99. I don't see anything extraordinary here, but it looks serviceable, especially for the price. Plus, it comes with the fun bullet point in the description stating,
"End when completing the game."
So, I guess as soon as the credits finish rolling, you keel over and die? Another 4-letter character getting a game on Monday, Kubi Adventures is a $3 3D cute platformer starring a cat named, Kubi. Weakfish Studios and Franny Games toss you into a little collect-a-thon where you run around as a cat, collect coins, and then use said coins to buy more cats. And who doesn't love buying more cats? And then on Tuesday the 18th, we see two new Nindies, the first of which is Drowning Cross for 99 cents. Released by Origami Hero Games, who recently published Heart Chain Kitty and Unstrung, which we played on last week's Nindies at Night, Drowning Cross is a 90s-style point-and-click adventure with a self-proclaimed
weird story with supernatural elements.
It looks interesting, and for only $1, hey, it might be worth your time if you enjoyed the adventure games of yore. And I always forget if we should cover NIS America Games, what with them being a massive corporation in Japan, but a tiny operation in the West. But this week they're publishing Labyrinth Legend from Regista, and as far as I'm concerned, it is decidedly indie. Featuring a hideous smartphone-designed interface, it's a traditional dungeon crawler with 16-bit-ish graphics. I might check it out just in case the gameplay is exceptional, but I'm not holding my breath, and at $14.99 would suggest you wait to see for yourself as well. Wednesday sees two new releases, and I'm feeling both of them. While One Productions and Plug-in Digital bring us a seemingly clever take on tactical strategy with Guild of Ascension for $16.99. With a colorful medieval fantasy vibe, you play as two characters who must reach the top of a roguelike tower. Combat takes place on a grid, and the twist is how you have 10 seconds to look at the board and consider your strategy, and then another 10 seconds to carry it out. It is turn-based, but that mechanic keeps the turns so short that it really should keep the pace going. It's got a couple of those first indie game signs like the gaudy font and an interface that is pretty primitive, so for that reason I'll probably wait for a sale, but if we were able to check it out on Nindies at Night, I'm certainly down for giving Guild of Ascension a try. Now help me out here, because I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce the name of the studio responsible for our next game. The studio is called Asobism? Asabism? I don't know. They've created Vivid Night, which seems to be the exact kind of game that I hate to love. It's a dungeon crawler where it kind of seems like there's almost no game. You know what I mean? You take your team of chibi magical characters and run through a dungeon. They move on their own, so you're mostly just picking which way to go at various forks, occasionally using a spell, special attack, or whatever, and it seems to be no more than just the occasional button prompts. Hit the things, get the loot, do it all over again. Roguelike this, random that, I just feel like I could easily lose 15 hours of my life to this game. And while I want to run fast and far away, I do have a soft spot for this kind of game. It's $15 though, so I really wish it had a demo. But hey, if all of those gaming buzzwords weren't enough for your Nindie bingo card, it also includes procedurally generated dungeons, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! And now we've got a few games that release each day for the rest of the week, but before we get to those, here's a few to make sure that you avoid. T-Bull almost spelled their name right, given their entire catalog being complete bullshit, and they proudly continue that trend with a duo of dung this week. Racing Classics Pro Drag Race and Real Speed consists of terrible-looking cars that drive in a straight line, and somehow they still manage to f*** it up. Plus, the description was lifted right from the Apple App Store and describes the game as if it were a mobile game multiple times. Then they swapped the cars for dirt bikes and ATVs and called it Top Bike Racing and Moto Drag. Like I said, T-bullshit.
ARBS!
Apparently stands for Animal Revolt Battle Simulator, but considering it's literally a flat plane with randomized assets fighting automatically, my guess is that V-Dimension is well aware ARBS actually stands for Awful Rejected Bull. Plus, look at this dinosaur with human arms. And it's been a while since we've seen Hook games, so it's a shame they published Go Minimal this week. That's it. And we've got a new Nindie Never this week. 2, actually, but we'll get there in a second. First up is
Game Museum!
who releases Nature. Nature features a minuscule dandelion that you move up and down as some of the worst artwork to ever grace a video game scrolls by in the background. Welcome to the eShop.
Game Museum!
Now please die in a fire. The other Nindie Never is a publisher called Random Spin Games who also goes by the developer name
Phantom Gafton!
which just sounds like a villain, doesn't it? Anyways, they made 2 abominations, the first of which is Road Bustle. It's just Frogger, but shitty. The second is Alien Destroyer, and that one is just like Serious Sam, but without multiple weapons, or enemies, or environments, or a story. They really could have just called it 3% of a first-person shooter. It's got a good ring to it. Okay, 2 left. Jank Brain is trying to be a platformer. Looks like Log Games got half of the name right. And then from Silesia Games, we get Make the Burger. I see the visuals, I watched the trailer, I read the description. I honestly think you just pick food ingredients from a menu, and that's it. You don't even do anything with them. You just pick them. What? Back in the world of games worth your time and money, we get the long awaited release of Windjammers 2, a sequel to the arcade and Neo Geo sports game from 1994. Since then, the original game has been made available on multiple platforms, but if you haven't had a chance to play it, it's essentially Pong, with 2 players flinging a disc and trying to get it past their opponents. But then again, that's also like saying Tetris is just putting blocks into a row. Windjammers is so much fun, you guys, and it's even a blast if you just play against the CPU opponents. There's a reason it's such a cult classic. That's why I'm so excited for Windjammers 2, let alone because it's being developed by Dotemu, whose recent releases include Streets of Rage 4 and the Wonder Boy remakes, and this year they'll give us Shredder's Revenge and Metal Slug Tactics too. These guys only make incredible games. It's taken forever to get this one out, but I trust Dotemu to deliver something fantastic. So if you're even remotely interested in a fast-paced arcade game that is infinitely replayable, I see no reason to hesitate throwing $20 at Windjammers 2 when it kicks off this week's Big Thursday drop. But if you want the opposite of addictive arcade action, there's always Artifex Mundi games with their watercolor visuals, spooky or psychological themes, and point-and-click adventure gameplay that Christopher Bradford once said are great for mindless play once in a while. This week they've got Demon Hunter Ascendants for $15, and the face the guy is making on their cover art reminds me of that feeling when you know you have to rip a fart, but you must exercise extreme caution as to not accidentally soil yourself. Come on, we've all been there. Next up is a release by Rock Game, who has quite a few titles on PC, but I think this is their first on the Switch. Scrapknot looks like a cute little base-building survival game with a neat steampunk vibe. It launches for $11.99 and features co-op off and online for up to 4 players. Rebel Twins is a developer and publisher who mostly makes those mobile games that are clearly meant to attract people looking for more popular, similar titles, and on Thursday they bring Dragon Hills 2 to the Switch. It's an auto runner with combat kinda similar to Alto's Adventure or Earth Knight. Hard to tell if it's a cheap cash grab or actually holds merit, but at $17, I'm unfortunately leaning towards the former. And then, named after the smells I conjure up after eating a sausage and black olive pizza, Blackwind hits the eShop for $21.24, and I think it looks really cool. Released by Blowfish and Drakkar Dev, Blackwind is a mech combat action game with a dynamic viewpoint falling somewhere between third-person and isometric. It seems like it's just all-out action mixed with some platforming as you ward off an alien invasion. There's a bunch of upgrades to gather and implement, and it also includes local co-op. It's a bit pricey for such an unknown, but I'd definitely be interested in checking this one out for Nindies at Night. On Friday, January 21st, 5 more Nindies drop, and there's at least a couple here of interest. Hammer Kid is a charming pixel art adventure inspired by the 16-bit era that comes by way of Asylum Square Interactive. Visually, it looks a lot like Skull the Hero Slayer, but gameplay-wise, there's a lot of inspiration here from Mega Man X. I don't know that it'll blow anyone away, but it launches with an 80% discount and is only $1.99, so there's a really good chance I'll be picking this one up. Big Village Games rolls into town with a
zany multiplayer party game with a gimmick!
But the gimmick seems to be that it's just overcooked. Merrick's Market is all about making weapons and crafting spells as a medieval shopkeeper, but beyond the premise, I can't see anything that sets it apart from Overcooked. It even uses the same art style. At $20, I'm gonna say pass on this one. And Forever Entertainment is right there with them this week, as Baby Storm is also a
zany multiplayer party game with a gimmick!
But at least this one's a little more original. You watch over a kindergarten room and try to stop kids from wrecking shop.
Which feels like my life on any given day.
I can't help but draw nearly exact comparisons to Think of the Children, which released in the very early days of Nindie Nation, and was a hilarious game that worked well and makes it also hard to recommend Baby Storm, especially with it being $17.99. With last week's visual novel, that means the machine at Ratalaika Games is ready to tick-tock back to the other side this week with a retro puzzle platformer. Kin Duo is developed by Nib Games and releases for the usual $5 and asks you to complete a series of single-screen puzzles a la games like Donkey Kong 94. I'm not usually super interested in these games, but the inspiration here is clear and something that certainly has my attention. What do you think? Any other Donkey Kong 94 fans out there? Finally, for the week is a game that was just recently announced that comes packing a demo, so you can try it out right now, and you might want to. The Company Man is a stylish, cartoony 2D action-adventure about a white-collar worker who's had enough and goes on a quest to defeat the villainous corporate overlords at his company.
Which also kinda sounds like my everyday life.
I really enjoyed the demo, and I'm looking forward to the full release, but my only concern is that the game seems very simple, so I worry that it'll get boring after a while. If there happen to be a bunch of new moves and abilities to learn, or some kind of progression system that we just didn't see in the demo, that might be enough to calm my fears. It's another one that I'll try to get a copy of and we'll play during Nindies at Night, and I'll definitely be watching the reviews for it as well. The Company Man comes to us by Forrest and Leoful and rounds out the week for $17.99. Jeez, food is already getting pretty expensive, and so is gas, but I feel like the indies are jumping in price too. What's up with that? Oh, right, the economy. That's kinda how it all works. Anyways, with this broad of a mix, surely most of you see something of interest here, so let me know what's going on your wish list down in the comments. As I predicted last week, the sales on the eShop have dried up quite a bit, but there's still a few solid games available and a couple that I will implore you to check out. These are the 6 Nindies at their lowest prices ever, on sale through at least Sunday, January 23rd. We're going to start with the game that you have to buy, just legally binding because you're listening to this episode. It's Super Crush KO, the latest game by Vertex Pop, and has been featured on a lot of Nindie Nation content, including our favorite games from 2020. It's a very short but very replayable 2D action game where you chain together melee combat, occasional shooting, and lots of dodging and dashing. It's drenched in style, features an excellent soundtrack, and if you've ever played Beautiful Joe, should be at the top of your list, especially while it's 75% off for just $3.70. Another game from early 2020 that I know a lot of you have enjoyed, 3000th Duel is a beast of a game. Developed by a team of 2, it is very, very, very heavily inspired by Castlevania Symphony of the Night, but has a bit of a roguelike twist, which basically amounts to you being able to gather stuff that you dropped when you die. Since its release, it's received a ton of additional content and can easily take you 15 to 20 hours to complete. It is a bit janky, but it's still a great time. Check it out while it's 60% off for $5.99. Recently featured on Nindies at Night, the roguelike deck builder with a psychological twist, Neurodeck, is already discounted by half off for $6.99. At this price, I think it's an easy recommendation, especially if you like card battling games. The premise of psychological fears and how the game quizzes you about your own beliefs throughout the match is a nice touch that changes things up nicely. There's also a bunch of replay value here, as Neurodeck is loaded to the brim with procedurally generated levels, rogue-like mechanics, and RPG elements! As is Round Guard, a game that has been recommended on this channel so many times since its release in early 2020. If you're familiar with it, Round Guard is basically Peggle, but a trifecta. It's got a great sense of humor and is fun for a few minutes or an all-night session, and is currently 60% off for $7.95. As it is a trifecta, Round Guard also includes procedurally generated levels, rogue-like mechanics, and RPG elements! I did that one out of the other side of my mouth. That's what she said. Last up are 2 little titles meant for a quick arcadey style fix and are perfect for if you're sitting on some eShop gold coins. Bot Vice is a gallery shooter, which was a genre that was really popular in the 90s, but we didn't see much of it here in the US. It looks just like a Super Nintendo game and is set up with your character behind a wall at the bottom of the screen with a bunch of enemies and obstacles on the other side that, you need to make not alive. I probably wouldn't recommend it at full price, but with an 80% discount, $1.99 should make this a solid addition to your Switch library. And finally for the week, another entry from our favorites of 2020, and the other excellent candidate for your eShop gold coins is Breakpoint, which is 55% off for $2.23. If you played Geometry Wars back in the day, you're on the right track here. But if not, Breakpoint is a neon-infused twin-stick shooter where you don't shoot. Instead, you swing all kinds of melee weapons that can all be upgraded throughout your run and be used in multiple ways as you fend off non-stop waves of enemies. I really like Breakpoint, and at this price, I think most of you will too. So what are your picks for the week? Grabbing Windjammers 2, checking out Super Crush KO?
You are?
Taking a chance on games like Blackwind or Scrapknot? Let me know down in the comments. Also, come chat with us on Twitter or Discord, the links to both of which are in this episode's description. I know I keep saying the Game of the Year video is coming soon, and it is, but it's just been a lot of work, and I'm really hoping to release it before next week's episode. Keep your eyes peeled, and if you see it pop up later this week, any and all promotion or sharing of it would be greatly appreciated. What do you think the number 3 pick is? That's the one I think most of you will be surprised by. Also, thanks for voting in the Community Game of the Year poll. I think we've got a clear winner, but I'll leave it open for a few more days, just in case you missed it over on the YouTube community page. This week we're going to vote on the best games that you played from previous years and/or picked up on a big sale and happened to love. So head back over one more time and cast your vote, because as soon as that's done, we'll be turning your results into a video. I say we, but it's me. I'll be turning your results into a video. It's just me. Looking ahead, there's actually not all that much scheduled for release beyond a couple weeks out, so I'm hoping we get an Indie World presentation before too long. I know we just had one in December, but I still think we're gonna see one in late February or early March. Either way, we've got a few titles to look forward to next week, and right now the musical beat-em-up Pop Slinger is topping my list for games I'm very excited to check out. But that's all for next week, citizens, and we're all done for today. Thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. Until next week, citizens, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 133, and remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.